Hello everyone. Welcome to Geograph. In this video, I will discuss about weathering. This video will help you to understand the concept of weathering, definition of weathering, and the controlling factors of weathering. So let's start with the concept. As we all know that the earth's surface is not flat but is rather unevenly spread out due to the presence of various types of landforms like mountains, plains, hills, etc. These uneven landforms are formed and deformed due to the influence of two forces. One is endogenetic and another one is exogenetic forces. Endogenetic forces, also known as tectonic forces, we all know, are responsible for the construction of landforms. So these are the constructive forces. On the other hand, exogenetic forces, which also known as gradational forces, are responsible for the wearing down the landforms on the earth's surface. So we can say that the two forces, that is endogenetic and exogenetic, always act opposite direction. We also say that there is a continuous process of creation of relief features by endogenetic forces and their destruction by exogenetic forces. Exogenetic forces always try to remove the vertical irregularities created by the endogenetic forces and ultimately become successful in bringing down the reliefs to low featureless plain or peneplain. Among these exogenetic forces, the important one is weathering, which is the topic of our discussion. Weathering. The word weathering came from the word weather. We all know about the weather. The different elements of weather, when change the rocks on the surface of the earth, it is called weathering. In another way, we can define weathering as it refers to the breakdown or disintegration and decomposition of rocks in situ through physical and chemical changes in the rocks by different elements of weather like rainfall, temperature, wind, glacier, etc. As very little or no motion of materials takes place in weathering, it is an in situ or on-site process, or we can say it a static process. The weathered material is carried further away by erosion only. There are some definition of weathering which have given by different geographers like C.D. Ollier, B.B. Polinov, Sparks, etc. Now come forward to the controlling factors of weathering. there are so many factors which control the nature and the magnitude of the weathering. Which are these factors? The first one is composition and structure of rocks. The second one is nature of ground slope. Third one is climatic variation. Fourth one is floral effects. And the last one is time. Now, I am going to discuss all these factors in detail. The first one is composition and structure of rocks. Here, we consider three things: rock composition, texture, and rock structure. In case of rock composition, rock forming minerals have different reaction to weathering. As for example, we can say about sandstone, which are less affected by weathering due to its hardness because it is composed of quartz. On the other hand, limestone or marble, which have more soluble calcium carbonate, which are easily affected by chemical weathering. If you consider texture, then the fine-grained rocks are less affected than coarse-grained rocks by weathering, because fine-grained rocks are compact and its compactness resists the weathering process. If we consider rock structure, then well-jointed rocks are more subjected to mechanical disintegration. On the other hand, the rocks having horizontal beds are more compact and are less affected by the weathering processes. Now, come to the second factor, which is nature of ground slope. In case of gentle and moderate slope area which face less weathering, but the region having steep slope are more subjected to weathering. Why? Because due to continuous removal of loose materials, either by gravity or by erosion, which result in continuous exposure of the fresh rock. This exposure of fresh rock is come under the direct sun ray, which triggered the weathering process. Climatic variation. This is the another one. In tropical climate, both the chemical and mechanical weathering are dominant. Why? Due to high temperature and high moisture content of this climate zone. Because of this abundance of moisture and high temperature, two processes are in active mode. These are leaching and solution, which favors the chemical weathering in humid tropical areas. And rocks also weaken due to the alternate expansion on heating during daytime and contraction on cooling during night time, which create faults on rock resulting into physical disintegration. In other side, in temperate climate area, rocks are more susceptible to physical weathering than chemical weathering due to alternate freeze and thaw of water accumulated in cracks, fractures and joints. In this zone, particularly in the area of grassland, biological weathering is also more dominant. Why? Due to the decomposition of plant tissue. In cold climatic zone, rocks are least affected by mechanical weathering. But chemical weathering may be effective only when the ground surface is not covered by ice cover for longer duration in a year. In that case only, chemical weathering may be effective in cold climatic zone. Now, the fourth factors comes this factor is floral effects. Vegetation play a dual role as a protector or as a destroyer. How? Vegetation bind the rocks through their network of roots, and thus they protect rocks from weathering. But at the same time, the penetration of roots weakens the rocks by breaking them into several blocks. And also, microorganisms associated with the roots of plants or trees facilitates the decomposition and disintegration of rocks through physio-biochemical weathering. The amount of vegetative cover also control the nature and magnitude of weathering. The areas having dense vegetative cover are least affected by weathering than the areas having low vegetative cover. The last factor is time. This is the another important factor which control the weathering. Weathering of rock is not possible to happen overnight or within a day. It takes time, like thousands of years, hundreds of years, because it is a time taking process. And the duration of time for which a rock is exposed to weather determines the extent of weathering. Even if a hard rock exposed for a longer period time to weather, definitely the rock will undergo the process of weathering. Thank you for listening, and if you have any queries, please write down in the comment box and I will definitely answer the queries. And again, thank you.